Over the years, the horror genre has been given a lot of hate over preconceived ideas of it being mindlessly violent or unnecessarily grotesque. While this may be the case for some films, the horror genre is actually much deeper and meaningful than it gets credit for. With a sudden surge of popularity at the box office, horror films are finding their way back into pop culture. Some find it vulgar, while others call it art. Horror is a very divisive genre, but the truth is, there is a lot to be learned from it. Monsters and villains can be used to represent deeper themes and allegories, which may make you think. A true master of horror can make you interpret a concept or character as a much broader idea and really get into your head in order to spread a message. Here are some films which are more than just blood and guts, and use symbolism to convey a deeper and more profound meaning. Halloween, Death. Silent, patient, and eerily emotionless, John Carpenter's immortal 1978 classic Halloween gave birth to one of the scariest movie villains ever put to film. From chilling descriptions of him having the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes,
emotionless face, and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes,
to ominous names like The Shape and The Boogeyman, Michael Myers is instantly memorable. Everyone points to the film for its standout score, cinematography, seasonal atmosphere, and tension. But the biggest accomplishment of Carpenter's film is just how well he transforms this very cheesy trope of a masked killer into something much more sinister and profound. This is death personified in a suburban setting, and it makes for an imposing and haunting figure. The fear of the unknown is a typical thing for horror, but the fear of inevitable death is much more real on a basic human level. This villain walks at his own pace, but will eventually catch up, and there's something very unnerving about that. He will take his time, and then slowly, without any remorse, take you out, much like death itself. Carpenter understands that and portrays it extremely well on screen. It. Childhood fear and trauma. Naturally, the king of horror himself, Stephen King, would have to make an appearance on a list like this. King's It has remained in mainstream horror for so long, both as a timeless novel and a contemporary box office goldmine for its humane themes and horrific ideas. The entire story is one big metaphor for growing up, the fears that hold you back, and the fears that follow you through life. Pennywise is a manifestation of the darkness in the town of Derry, as it feeds on the fears of children. The fears from both the novel and film can range from something goofy and irrational like fictional monsters, such as the Mummy or the Wolfman, to real-life issues like child abuse or bullying. Stephen King weaves this fantastical tale of monsters and magic, but at its core, it's more of a study of childhood innocence and friendship. The kids in the story protect each other, but they can only do that for so long. They go their separate ways, and it comes back stronger than ever. A clear representation of how grief, abuse, and bullying can follow a child throughout their life. While it does have a happy ending, Pennywise lives in readers' minds as one of the most chilling representations of fear in all of storytelling.
Oh, nobody wants to kiss the fat boy.
Just leave me alone!
Alone? Oh, you've always been alone.
Friday the 13th, The Walking PSA. The Friday the 13th franchise may not be the most intelligent horror series out there, but there's no denying that the franchise has one of the most iconic horror villains ever put to screen. One of the dumbest, cheesiest film franchises of the 80s, these movies are the primary target for the argument of horror being mindless violence. However, even a series as cheaply made and poorly written as this has something to say, and that's part of the reason why fans enjoy it so much. You never feel bad for the victims in these movies, and that's part of the fun. But why is that? There are so many horror films where you want to see the heroes win, but the hook of Friday the 13th is that there are no heroes. This is because Jason Voorhees is somewhat of a dark, almost Christ-like figure. He punishes teenagers for their sins. If a character is caught drinking, doing drugs, or having sex, Jason is waiting around the corner to kill them. We, as an audience, accept that and consider it fair. Of course, there is one character in each film who is pure of heart and will eventually take him down. The logic and lore of Friday the 13th may be ever-changing and confusing, but one thing has always remained the same. Jason Voorhees is a figure who stands for doing the right thing. He is a murdering, zombified PSA, and that is one thing the directors and writers of this series have always gotten right. Get Out, Racism. In 2017, actor-comedian Jordan Peele turned heads with his highly acclaimed horror film Get Out. Writing and directing this modern masterpiece and future classic, Peele showed a very strong understanding of how the genre can be used to spread a powerful message. In this case, the film is very much an allegory for racism. We're introduced to the protagonist Chris going to meet his girlfriend's parents. As the trip goes on, the layers are peeled back to reveal a sinister plot of the white, rich family brainwashing and exploiting black people, in an extremely unique and captivating twist to the normal psychological thriller.
We are the gods, trapped in cocoons.
Rather than having the family simply kill the victims, Jordan Peele depicts this family as a power-hungry group, using black victims as a business, brainwashing them and essentially selling their bodies to other rich white buyers. The entire premise is sick enough to truly sit with you, but sophisticated and original enough to create a lasting effect. Like all great horror creators though, Peele uses a specific and memorable image to convey his message visually. This is, of course, the now iconic sunken place. A dark void where the victims of the brainwashing go, this simple yet effective image perfectly captures what the film is all about, and it's nothing short of brilliant. The black inhabitants feel utterly powerless, much like how racism in society holds people of color back.
Where are those keys, Rose?
You know I can't give you the keys, right, babe?
Frankenstein OUTCASTS. One of the oldest and most prominent figures in all of storytelling, Frankenstein continues to resonate with audiences all these years later as a heartbreaking symbol of hatred-fueled self-loathing and loneliness. Cast out by the townspeople and its creator for being a monster, Frankenstein is never given a fair chance, and that is how a lot of people feel about society. People can be judged and hated for things as shallow as the way they look or dress, and that's what this story understands and conveys so well. Humans can be unreasonably cruel, particularly to people who don't fit into the accepted normalcy of society. The people are the true villains of this story, and that's a great take on the conventions of a monster story in and of itself. This tale gives people a sympathetic monster and a character that outsiders can relate to, which is not uncommon now in horror, seeing as the target demographic generally consists of people struggling to find their place and identity. So they turn to monsters and horror stories for help. There is really something quite special in that. No matter where you come from, what you believe in, or how you look, this character, who is primarily looked at as a villainous creature, can actually act as a comforting symbol. Frankenstein's monster is important for so many reasons, but it's the simplicity of what it represents that makes the character everlasting.
Who are you? I'm Maria. Will you play with me?
The Shining Alcoholism. One of the most discussed and highly influential horror films of all time, The Shining remains a timeless classic for its human themes inside of a supernatural tale. This is a psychological thriller dressed as a ghost story, while at its core, a strong narrative of a family consumed by the father's past problems with alcoholism. We follow a newly sober writer and groundskeeper as he takes his family to a remote hotel for the winter. However, by stepping into the Overlook Hotel, Jack Torrance is also stepping back into his alcoholic past. The evil entities and ghosts of the hotel slowly corrupt Jack, just like his old addiction, as he begins to act violently towards his family, resulting in a complete mental breakdown.
Surprise coming to you. You're not going anywhere.
While the connections to the hotel and Jack's alcoholism are not explored as thoroughly in Stanley Kubrick's adaptation, as it deals more with the supernatural aspects of the story, these themes are still relevant throughout the film. with the Overlook still being a clear analogy for the control that alcoholism has over the Torrance family. King and Kubrick both do a phenomenal job at expressing this very intimate and personal human struggle, while still presenting a scary and original story. And that's what The Shining is all about. The notion of Jack's abusive and addiction-riddled past coming back to haunt the family looms as deeply over the story as any ghost or spirit, and that is the brilliance of both the book and film. This is what happens when creative minds meet the horror genre. It can be more than blood and guts. Horror is an art form just like any other vessel of storytelling. All it takes is an inventive creator and an audience that is willing to read between the lines. After all, fiction is the truth inside the lie.